Hey folks, Jonathan here, back on the forklift. Unfortunately, because of the height of the engine, the height of the oil pan, clearing the steering and everything, we had to raise it up 2 inches. So we've raised everything 2 inches. So we're going to have a 2-inch gap here along the floorboard, and then we're going to have a 2-inch gap under the back of the hood, unfortunately, but we will do something about that later. What I'm doing now is just raising everything 2 inches. You can see I've got angle iron in here, raising the floorboards up, panels. This is raised up. We've got rubber under the mounts on both ends, both of them on this side, both of them on the other, and drive shafts in, lined up. Getting ready to cut this, put it up in here, and we're going to have to shorten it up. We're going to take an inch out and take an inch off the end and move the bolt holes down. And we'll probably just slot them, and that way we can put the bolts in and just slide it up to it. And as long as we can get it in far enough to get it on the right bolt holes, because our floor bolts to this one. And I think everything's going to be fine. The only thing different is the steering wheel is going to be 2 inches lower. Everything else went up. You know, the shifters went up, the pedals went up, the floor went up, the seat went up. The steering wheel is the only thing that didn't go up, and I think, you know, 2 inches is not going to be that much of an issue. We can live with that, and everything else is coming along pretty well. Just looking, I see some seeds in that filter, so that's got to come off anyway, and we'll figure out whether we're going to use it or use a different style. We do have, like I said, the mounts are done. Front and rear engine is exactly where it's got to be. I can't go over any farther either way. Really, everything's close, so I think it's all going to work out here. Ordered a radiator, ordered a pump. We're going to put a power steering pump on, hydraulic pump on the motor, belt driven. I'll show you it here in just a little bit. But for now, I'm going to do this floor, and I'm going to get back on the linkage, try to get the clutch hooked up and all that good stuff before the floor is on permanent. All right. Okay, folks, been working away at this thing. As you can see, everything's 2 inches up. So we've raised transmission, engine, floorboard, front floorboard, seat, this panel, as you can see, put a 2-inch spacer in. We're going to do some work on the hood and stuff. The only thing we didn't raise, of course, is the steering wheel, so we'll think that'll be all right. I may end up having to do something a little different, but anyway, so hydraulics. I'm going to show you what we're going to have to do on it. One thing is, I did get the radiator in for it, which is a aluminum 4-core. It is a Model A Ford V8 conversion radiator. It's the only thing I could find that would fit in there. It should do fine. You know, forklifts don't usually go much over idle anyway, so and that's made for, you know, a small block Chevrolet or something like that, you know, 350 cubes, V8. This is only 354 cubes, and Perkins are not known for heating anyway, so we're going to give that a try. And then let me show you the original pump that was on this engine, or on the engine that was in it, and explain a few things about it. Okay, so here is the hydraulic pump that was on our Flathead 6 engine that operated a forklift. The front section was what operated the forklift. The rear section is what operated the power steering. So as you can see, it's got a 2-inch inlet, 3/4 outlet for pressure side. But okay, there's a big difference in 1950s technology and the way they did things compared to now. Okay, so this is probably a 56, 57 model forklift, and as you can see, that's a huge intake. That's 2-inch. It had 2-inch all the way to the tank. 3/4 is actually pretty big for the outlet. They didn't work on a pressure system as much as we do now. They worked more on a volume system, and that's why the cylinder on this thing is so big. It's got a 6-inch cylinder, where the cat forklift I've got is a 4-inch cylinder. So a lot of difference in the surface area of the piston. The surface area is a big factor on how much pressure you need, how many gallons per minute. To give you an example, a airbag to flip a semi over, you can do that with less than 15 psi. And no different than like a bouncy house for a kid. You know, there's no actual pressure there, it's just volume of air. And because it's such a big area, that's why it will hold a person up. So it works on the same principle. If you got a small area, then you need more pressure to pick it up. So that's what they, you know, basically the newer stuff has more pressure. So we're actually changing to a higher pressure pump. We're going back to a 1-inch line on the intake, and we're going to go ahead and run a 3/4 outlet because that's what's on it now, and shouldn't have any issues. I bought all the line we need and everything. The only issues I'm going to have is hooking up to the tank. I don't think I can actually hook the 1-inch into the 2-inch suction line going down into the tank. Let's pretend this was the tank, and be able to suck it up through a 2-inch pipe into a 1-inch pipe. I don't know if that's good or not. That's it sounds kind of, I don't know, it sounds like it wouldn't work good to me. So we're going to take the elbow off the tank up here and see what we can do about a different inlet, and we'll see if there's a screen on it. There's probably not, probably just a straight inlet. We'll see. The fluid looks really good in it. The fuel tank I've drained out, it had gas in it, but it wasn't terrible, so I think it'll be fine. So the power steering pump on this end, it's just a power assist, and I'm going to try to explain to you how power assist works. I'll go up here and show you the cylinder, but I bought a power steering pump from Speedway Motors with a belt drive. I actually had a pump that I was going to use on it, but I realized that it faced the engine, and so it was a reverse rotation, just like this is a reverse rotation. It's actually looking at the end of it, it's clockwise. So if you want a pump to run on the front of the engine, you need something that's counterclockwise. Well, the thing was backwards, so I ended up buying a pump. I bought a pump from Surplus Center for the lift, and then I bought it, and I think I went with about 15 gallons per minute. I didn't want it to be too much fluid. I would rather it be slow and have plenty of power. But you got to remember, when you increase pressure, you reduce flow. You would think it would be opposite, but it's not. You've got to restrict it to add pressure, so that cuts back on flow. And that's the way that works. So anyway, let's go look at the new pump and the power steering pump, and I'll show you how that power assist cylinder works on the steering. Okay, so like I said, the other pump ran on the side of the engine here, and we're actually going to put the pump down in the grill where them 3 bars are. We'll end up cutting them and redoing, you know, that section. And here's the drive shaft that goes with it. Now this is 1 inch. I've got to change it out to 7/8. U-joints, these things have got the clips on the end or the outside. Most have clips on the inside. The U-joint, or the yoke I have for this, is actually got it on the inside, and I'm hoping it's going to work by changing caps, or possibly changing this entire joint. Whatever I've got to do, we're going to make it work. All right, folks, we got bad news down the tank. Of course, this thing was gasoline. I'm sure you're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to take this cover off. We are definitely going to have to clean this out. It is rough in there. I'm hoping I can get, if I take this off, I'm hoping I can get in there with a shop vac or something. We'll see. All right. Well, there you go. I haven't scraped it yet to see how bad that bottom is, but there's a lot of rust in there. Some down the side here. Come on. Yeah, let's check the bottom out and see what it looks like. Well, I think it'll clean up, but boy, there's a lot of rust in there. I don't know, flaky rust. And it's going to be hard to get it all. That tank comes down and then curves out, and it's part of it there. Don't know. We'll figure it out though. Alright. There's some of it. I sort of borrowed a shovel. I won't say who I borrowed it from, but so I think we can get it cleaned out. It's just going to take some work and some time, and you know, like I said, at least we have something to get to it. That's the main thing. That's about 4.5 inches by 4.5, I think, something like that. So it should be okay. All right, let me show you the pumps. Okay, here's our new pump that is going to actually mount and run a drive shaft through to the front of the engine. And I've got elbow fittings for this, for the suction line and for the pressure line, and I should be able to run right out into the pressure line right out there. I'm going to take the hose that's on its off and run it into the metal part, and I should have enough hose to do that, I hope. I ordered enough. We'll see if it's enough. So suction line, we should be fine. Probably going to mount a pump like this so we can keep the shaft low as we can. It really don't matter, but we could flip it over if we needed to, but shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to make a bracket for it and everything and get it mounted in. It's going to have to go, of course, in a good ways. So, you know, this is going to be probably, you know, pretty far inside. So it's not going to look terrible, but, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So we've got that. We've got the fittings. And we have the power steering pump from Speedway. And it's just a belt and ribbon pump and with a suction pressure line, and we're going to try to get it hooked up also. And so we'll be running it below the alternator, and it runs a single belt. This runs a single belt. It should be fine. We can use the alternator adjustment to tighten the belt, and we'll just make a solid mount below the alternator and go, of course, with a longer, newer belt, new belt, and we'll wire that GM alternator. That's not a problem. Steering cylinder. Okay, that's the steering cylinder. Okay, so you got a pressure in and you have a return, and the return, as you can see, runs out and runs to the other side over at the tank. I don't know if you can catch that or not, but anyway, so how this works, it's basically a cylinder with a control valve on the end of it, and when you steer this thing, you operate the control valve. When it slides one way, it puts fluid to one end. When it slides the other way, it puts fluid to the other end of the cylinder. And then when it's in the center, it's just free flowing back into the tank. And that's just essentially how a power assist works. It's not complicated at all. You know, the cylinder's rebuildable, just like any hydraulic cylinder. Should work fine with that pump. We'll see. You know, see how good it does, good or bad. So anyway, we're going to continue to try to get this tank clean. We're getting pretty close on things. You know, we got a lot of the fabricating done. The clutch pedal's hooked up. The brakes, everything's fine with it. It's going to need a master cylinder. It's dirty as can be, so I don't want to take a chance on even putting fluid in it. Let me see. You know, all the shifters are hooked up, the high and low, and the of course one in the transmission. And this stuff I have to come off, go back on a few different times, because I've still got to do the throttle, and the throttle was on this side and had a long rod that run back. Now it's going to be on the other side because the injector pump's on the other side. Engine just did clear the back here after raising, of course, 2 inches. And I think everything's going to work out good. The radiator's actually going to be up about 2 inches above, so we're going to have to, you know, fabricate something in the back there when we put the hood on. But you know, it's okay. We'll figure it out. Nothing, you know, it's just problem solving. What's next, and then you just keep rolling. So next is getting this gas tank clean. I think that's what I want to do anyway. I want to see if we can get an electric pump hooked up. The manual pump is not hooked up on this, and I wouldn't mind getting a new manual pump putting on it, but we'll see. But let me see if I can get this clean. All right, folks, we're getting there. A lot of tank scraping and shot back, and just, you know, good old-fashioned hard work. That's what it takes. We'll go in here and I don't know what we're going to eventually do. We're going to get it as clean as we can get it and get all the flakes off. I see, you know, we've got rust here that needs to, I don't know, we might hit it with sandpaper or hand sand it or something, try to get some of just the rust off of it, and then we can reach up and get the top side, no problem. This hole is perfect for actually putting your arm in and able to go all the way up to the front here. And I've been working in here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let's see if we can get some light. Go through the hole here. Alright. It's not done yet. We're getting there. But I'm able to reach all the way up. Luckily my arm's long enough that I can go through and reach all the way up, all the way into the bottom. And most of what I'm doing, I'm getting with the scraper. So we will eventually get it. So I'll have to return this, clean this up really good, and then return it to the rightful owner. This is just some of the rust we got out. This is just what I got out with the little shovel. And took the water hose and actually ran in there and washed it out, and then used the shop vac after that. So we're going to keep cleaning though. We'll get it eventually. It's not bad at all, and I haven't spent a lot of time on it, so it's coming clean really quick. So. All right, folks. So working on hydraulic pumps. It's raining today, so waiting on the rain to cease, and I can do a little more. We do have it moving. So the clutch is working really well. No issues there. Fuel tank's done. Fuel's in it. I fired it up. Battery. It's not big enough underneath the seat for the battery that I want to use. So I'm either going to cut the front open and let the battery stick out some and mount it, or I'm going to make a mount here. I'll be far enough away from the exhaust. I think it'll be just fine if I, build a good tray for it. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. Starts real good, runs pretty good. I need to go through the valves and adjust them. You can hear them tapping. All right, folks, here's where we're at. Got the drive shaft in. I got the grill cut out. I cut that out. Now we got to do some grinding to make it fit the pump, and then drill it. We're going to get her mounted and try to get some hoses on this thing, and hopefully be testing the lift part today. We'll see how that goes. All right. Okay, folks, so I'm up here working on what would be the suction side of this hydraulic tank. The tank is in good shape. Fluid looks good. This is our suction 2-inch, which we don't want 2-inch. I don't think that if I hooked my 1-inch in there that it would do right, and I might be wrong, but I don't want to take that chance. So I don't know how it's set up in there. I can't feel anything with sticking this long pry bar down in it or nothing like that. So we're going to take this cover off. This is sort of like the gas tank cover, except it looks like a little bigger. Hopefully I know it's going to be nasty, but reach my hand down in there and maybe feel that. We're not in California, so we're not going to get any cancer from that oil. And maybe we can make a cap for the top of this, because it had a can shoved over it, and it needs to be vented, and that's probably the reason they didn't have a regular pipe cap over it. We'll figure out something. I think I've got a vented cap in there, but it may be too big, but we might do some changing to it. Anyway, so we may run a 1-inch line down in here, but I want to see if there's a filter on it, or a screen, let's say. All right. Well, it looks like we've got a baffle in there, so it's not going to help. I don't know. Is that a opening? Maybe it's got an opening in the center. All right, let me see what I can figure out. Yeah, I think it does. Boy, that's going to be nasty. If anybody wants to volunteer to do this. Okay, folks, we figured out what we got here. 2-inch pipe going down, elbow, and a really, really nice filter screen right down here. And looks really good. So this is my plan. I don't know how well it's going to work, but okay, so we had this elbow was on the top of it, 2-inch. So we took it off, and we're going to run this adapter, this pipe. This will be welded in, and then I'll run on the inside of this pipe, I'll run a 1-inch pipe all the way down to where it touches bottom. Now it's got an elbow, so if it touches bottom, it's going to be on a curve, and then I'm also going to drill some holes in the side of it, and that way it's going to suck through, but it's going to suck through that system. If not, we would have to take all this apart, and then I still got to come up with a filter. And I think this screen that's in here is a really nice one, so we're going to use it. And the fluid is really clean. I didn't feel anything in the bottom of it, no build up or anything like that. So we're in really good shape for this. So I think that's how we're going to do it. I've got a piece of 1-inch pipe I'm going to run down, and I'm going to get my height right, and then that way it's just sucking up through a 1-inch pipe. The pump where it's at, it's not going to be a lot of lift because the pump's pretty low, so I think we're going to be fine with all that. And then we'll run our 1-inch suction line out of here. So like I said, I just didn't want to go from 1-inch to 2-inch on the suction. I don't know how well it done. I'm sure it would probably picked it up, but I just don't know. I've never attempted anything like that, so I'd rather not take a chance on it. And I really like these, you know, the openings and cleanouts they've got on these tanks. They were sure thinking when they built this stuff. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore. They're not going to make anything accessible for, you know, people to work on it anyway. Okay folks, here's what we've got. Let's weld it up. Again, it's not beautiful, but it'll do just fine. There's no, this just keeps the water from getting in. It's sealed from here all the way down the pipe. So, and there's what we've done with the end. And it comes down right within an 1/8 inch of the bottom. And like I said, the bottom is curved because it's a pipe, so it's not going to seal on the bottom anyway. And then when I've got holes to make up for everything, so that should do it. We got our 1-inch snipple for our suction hose. So I feel a little more confident about that than I did what we had. So, all right, folks. Not the best weather to be welding in, but here's what we got so far. We should have this pump hooked up pretty soon, and then we're going to run the lines. And I've had fun with the pressure line because of where it is mounted at on the machine. I should have pulled the old one off before I put the engine in, and I didn't. And it's going to cause some major issues. But anyway, we got some more welding to do. Everything's lined up where it needs to be. Unfortunately, I've got to run the suction line out this side and around the back of the pump and then back through, because there's no room if I don't. So I'm not going to like to, you know, I didn't want the hoses to be exposed out there, but that's okay. You know, I could buy fittings and redo it and change it and all that good stuff, but too much of a pain. I'll just go ahead and do it that way, and it's not going to hurt anything. It's all still going to be well within, you know, where our pinhole is here, and so it's not going to stick out anywhere or look like a sore thumb or anything like that. Actually, when it's done, it should look like it's supposed to be there or close to it. So anyway, let me keep at it. I'll get this welded in good, and then we'll go from there. Okay folks, I got all the hoses hooked up. Suction line ran just about like it was ran originally. The only difference is it comes back here to this pump. So that's done, and the lift seems to work pretty good. I've only done it at a slow idle, and it moves about the speed that you'd want it to move at a slow idle, so I think it's going to be really fine. So that's done. So next, we actually, well, I picked it up first time it's been picked up, and I cleaned these off, and I kind of figured that, as you can see, they're already leaking because there's no doubt in my mind, because of how long this thing sits, that it's going to be repacked. And it's not a problem really. We'll probably just lean this thing forward, unpin it, and leave them on it, and just take them apart and repack them. Now these are the chromes off of them, but they can still be smoothed out, and as long as they kept oiled up, they'll be fine. But I did sand them before, you know, I moved it, but I kind of figured it would leak. This one cleaned up pretty good, but it'll probably start leaking. Now this one here, you know, it's not going to have top seals in it because it's just vented at the top, and that's what this line does. It comes down this big steel line. So all you have is your cylinder bore and your piston inside of it. So if it starts leaking, it'll either leak down, or it'll start filling it up with fluid and start putting fluid out that pipe. So everything works good. I raised it up about halfway, and I could feel it bouncing, so I know it's a little low on fluid. So we let her back down, and it's good to go. So I know it drives. I know it it runs good. Oh, also, somebody had said something about how I zeroed that in. Had a couple people actually mention it. And if you remember right, this plate had a mount and a hole in the center, which was machined in, so it was perfect. I actually put a dial indicator magnetic on the flywheel, and before I put everything together and turned it. Now I was going to scribe this cover, but it wasn't going to come out real well. So what I ended up doing, I took some stainless tubing I had, and I cut it, and I actually slid it over the bolts and put it inside to line it up. And after I'd done that, I think I'd done 4 or 5 of them, after I'd done that, I checked it with the dial indicator and it was perfect. So I knew that with the sleeves on the bolts that it would line it up and I could go from there. So that's what I've done. I ended up wanted a cap on this, so I had a vented cap, but I had to make a piece for it. So now we're good to go there. Radiator and power steering is coming up next, and we're ready to start trying to pick up with this thing here soon. Of course, like I said, I'm going to have to pack them 2 cylinders. Both of them are going to leak pretty bad. Already leaking pretty bad, so like I said, I kind of figured we'd have issues, but I mean, you know, that's just the way it is. You know, worst comes to worst, you can make new shafts for them, because you know there's no chrome left on them, but I think we can work with them. They'll be okay.